I've got 16 bins of sourdough here. I've got them all labeled either with a number 1 or a number 2, depending on which mix they came out of, since we did 2. And I've waited until this time to get them folded. So one of the mixes is about 45 minutes older than the other, and I'm not too concerned about that because folding is generally more effective later on in the mix. So yeah, a lot of people are very stuck on timing with folding. Like they're gonna fold right afterwards and then every 30 minutes. I do keep a 30-minute cadence in between 3 sets of folds, but the start time I wait until I have all my bins typically. Unless, I mean, if I did another third mix and if now I was 2 hours delayed, then that would probably be a little too much. But within an hour, I like to keep all my folds batched together. And it is nice to have as many bins out on the table as I can, because then I can batch the work. So I'm going to uncover a bunch of these. And this is the first round of folding. So each round of folding is going to come with its own dynamics. The dough is going to be far stretchier during this round of folding than it will be in subsequent rounds. This round of folding ends up doing a lot for building strength. I like to have water nearby because wet hands really help you handle the dough without it sticking to you. And there are 2 primary ways that we fold depending on who you ask here. They're really exactly the same as one another. It's just the direction which we're folding. I'll show you both. My preferred way, because I'm often putting inclusions in the dough, and this way is a little bit better when you're dealing with inclusions, is to loosen the dough from the edges, lift it from the middle, stretch it, and fold it onto itself. So you can see that it's a neat sheet that I folded over onto itself. It basically created a layer. I'm going to rotate the bin now like I did and do the same thing from the other side. And then I'm going to go 90 degrees and do the same thing this way and go on the other side. Now at this point, my dough has reached its maximum stretch. There is no set rule on you fold 3 times or you fold 4 times. It's actually more about folding to the point that the dough has reached maximum tension, and any further folding is going to start breaking it. So you really want to push it to sort of the maximum resistance, and that is a measure of just feeling. I'll show you the other method, still same, loosening the edges, but now I'm gonna lift from about 2/3 down and go the inverse. So now I lifted it up and folded it onto itself. Same thing, I created that same layer in reverse. So if Amanda really likes folding this way, and if you're dealing with just sourdough, there's something really nice. There's something really nice about folding this way. So in this case, I actually ended up adding a second round going lengthwise in this bin, because at the end of the day, all I care about is getting to the same point of resistance. So now both of these bins have more or less an identical point of resistance. And if I added another fold, I wouldn't really get very far. So that's the key with folding. I'm just gonna kind of run down the line now. At the end there, I'm really just tucking the edges so that it's a neater mass of dough. So these sheets of dough end up creating more layers and more strength. And so the next time that I go at this, the next fold, it's not going to be nearly as stretchy as it is this time. And that last fold, it's going to be even stronger. So then by the time we go to shaping, the dough is just significantly stronger than it is at this very moment. This is basically the gentle way of completing your dough development. As opposed to the mixer, you can achieve the same level of development in the mixer if you just keep it going, but you're not really developing it over time as much. It'll still loosen, and of course, really doing this in the mixer is more for quicker turnaround time. So in an industrial setting, you're basically going directly from the mixer, omitting the step altogether, and then starting to shape your bread. So you can go from mixer directly to divider, and then directly basically to proofing an oven. In our case, this handwork really allows a lot more nuance in the development. We can develop each bin, deal with variance at the level of each bin, and I think it's a critical component to producing high quality bread. You'll notice after every fold that the dough spreads back out and fills the container, but only in that first fold will it be completely squared off and flat. From here on out, you should see a slight rounding, which is the effect of the strength that you've built in folding. And by the end, it should hold more and more of its shape, meaning by the time you have that finished shaped loaf, it should hold its shape for a while before it starts to lose its strength. So really the important lesson here is making good artisan bread is very much tied to building dough strength. I'm going to go ahead and do that other method here, the reverse method, just to show that one more time. You can tell which method I'm more comfortable with. What's nice about this other method, this reverse method, is you can use gravity to help you. So gravity's pulling that dough down and creating more of a stretch. But I've noticed that you have to fold more to get to the same result. The benefit though is check out how smooth this top is, whereas this one's a little bit shaggier. So there's definitely trade-offs, and you can find what's right for you and for your environment. For me, I'm a little less worried about this because that will be corrected without a problem during shaping. And again, I like to do things that are universal to the best of whenever possible. So if this particular towards you folding works for inclusions and for the basic sourdough bread, I prefer it to the method that I have to have, to the idea that I have to have two different methods. You can see that now this dough has some strength to where it's not immediately spreading out. But when we were initially starting, I think the biggest pitfall when you're folding is to essentially not do a stretch, like to do this, watch. That is not adequate. You did nothing. And you can see it already, this dough is pretty much back to where it started. It took seconds for it to spread back out, whereas this bin is still holding some shape even after the first fold, which right now I'm really not expecting all that much because I just started. So make sure you get that stretch. Make sure that when you're pulling up, you're pulling to the point that the dough is no longer going to pull any further, and it's going to start tearing if you go much further than that. You really want to get to the edge. So I'm on to my second round of folds. If you wonder why I look a little bit different, it's because I spent the 30 minutes in between folds in my garden and thought it was appropriate to a wardrobe change in here and not bring the outside into the the environment here. So, got a different proof hat on, different clothes, same person. So, moving into the second set of folds, and right away, it may or may not be easy to see this on video, but you should be able to see a very distinct difference between how much stretch I can actually perform on this dough. Before it was going above my head, and now I can't really stretch it as far. Still substantial, and on the third set you'll see even less. This is also already at a nice strength, so that last fold there was unnecessary. You can just feel it, that you've reached a point of tensioning that's sufficient. So again, it's really all about finding the max tension at that given moment. This is a way to balance out all of your dough and create some consistency. If you have slightly different performance, maybe you ended up having a little bit more water in your dough on a given day or a little bit less. Folding allows you to sort of make up for minute differences. Maybe you mixed a little bit more or less on a given day, since can't always get the exact same development every day, but what you can do is use this method, which is really a method of fine-tuning, to bring consistency to your breads day in and day out. Once I start noticing some micro tears, that's when I know that I've pushed it about as far as I can. So I've got one more bin on this table before I rotate. You can still see the remnants of a previous fold, but the reason I know that I haven't done this yet is it's already relatively flat. It really wouldn't hurt to give it a little bit more stretching so long as you don't rip it. So even if you do blunder and forget what you've already stretched, just make sure you're not overstretching. The dough will tell you when it's had enough. That's for sure. I'll go back to Amanda's method and show you that on the second fold. You can see that gravity is not really bringing it down nearly as much. It's actually a little easier to do this method on the second fold than it was on the first fold, in my opinion. All right, so last set of folds. Now I'm not expecting as much of a stretch, but this is going to complete the job. And in about 10, 20, 30 minutes at most, I can start scaling this out into loaves. Now, every time you fold, you're degassing, so you got to kind of watch when if you're going to shape the bread and then put it in a refrigerator to give it a cold final proof, you want to make sure that the level at which it's hitting the fridge is similar each day. And so once you're shaping, you can decide whether to shape and leave the bread out for a little while or to shape and immediately put it in the fridge. And that's very much dependent on the time at which you shape based on how much the dough has risen in the bins. I'm kind of shaping, say it slightly on the early side, and so I'm probably going to leave everything out at room temperature until I run through all 250 or so loaves that we're shaping today, and then we'll just roll all of those into the fridge all at once. So if your folding has been effective, then by the time you get to your third fold, the dough should feel nice and strong. If it still feels the way that it did when you were doing fold one, then you probably didn't stretch it far enough. I would say, as a word of advice, to not be stressed so much about the dough. You certainly don't want to rip it. You want to be handling it with care, although you also don't need to baby this type of dough. In the beginning, I think I was worried about how I might impact the dough. And you have to sort of ask yourself, is your worry because of anything to do with quality in the bread, or is your worry because you're trying to go after some superficial means like a wildly open crumb in your artisan sourdough so that no one can even spread butter on the final bread? I think that's more of a baker's thing than a consumer thing. So we don't handle this too lightly. I mean, you can use some strength, definitely get a nice stretch in each time, and that's where you get the strength. I'll take strength over many things when it comes to dough development. If you build good and strong dough, it helps all along the process. So then when you go to turn the dough over onto the bread boards, when you go to bake, or onto your peel when you go to bake, the dough holds up better. You get better shape overall. It all sort of stems from strength. If you don't do the folding right, the dough will be stickier when you go to shape it, be less fun to work with, and in fact, you'll lose time. So maybe a temptation for people that are in a hurry would be to omit this step, but you'll pay for it twice over on the table. Sticky dough really slows you down, and dough is less sticky when it's strong.